Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and I couldn't wait. I watched episode 20 2 nights ago, and as y'all have probably seen by now, that was a fun episode. Finally getting answers, and I was gonna watch episode 21 last night. I was like, I can't wait. But when I sat down to watch it, I just couldn't start it. My brain was still firing on all cylinders, and I was like, no, I need to just wait a little bit longer before I watch episode 21. I just need to let my brain simmer down. And so this morning when I got up, I was like, no, I need to watch it because I want to know. We finally get all of these answers. And it's like after waiting all this time, finally getting the answers that I've been looking for. I just watched Ilse's Notebook again because I was like, okay, before I watch any more episodes, I need to go back and watch Ilse's Notebook. Oh man. What a trip, right? It's so weird. I'll probably talk about this in the recap, but it's like everything is so huge now. Seasons 1 through 3 up until last episode, they all kind of seem almost inconsequential. Not inconsequential, that's not the right word for it, but they all seem the scale of it seems so small. And then last episode, when you realize that the whole other world, like they're out there, the whole other thing with Marley, when you realize the whole thing of the Eldian Empire, when you realize just how big this story is, and how the last 3 seasons it's been so self-contained inside the walls, and now you get to see how big it is outside of it and the scope of it, it puts things into such a different perspective. And I don't know if I'll have time to go back and rewatch the entire series before starting season 4. I doubt it because I'm kind of crunched for time, but I am probably going to go back and watch certain episodes over again. Like episode 10 of season 2. I'm probably going to watch that before the recap and be like, holy crap, about that. So yeah, because so many answers that came up. I did have a few notes that I made leading up. From Ilse's notebook, I do want to note that, man, it's so weird seeing Petra and Oro again. And Mike, him sniffing out the Titans. God, man. Oro, I didn't realize this until watching, because he died in season 1, and it didn't really dawn on me until now. But Oro kind of had like an accent like Sasha, and Petra was trying to tell him to ditch the accent. And I was like, ah. So kind of similar to Sasha's ordeal with Ymir. Speaking of Ymir, that Titan, the subjects of Ymir line. And it makes me wonder, that Titan that like worshipped Ymir, thinking that she was, because yeah, Ymir is the name of the original Titan, right? The original Titan is Ymir Fritz. And so the idea that Ymir was called her and that these people worshipped her thinking she was the descendant of the king, which in the timeline makes sense because we assume this was taking place, in Marley, when Ymir was discovered, and that her people were from a different zone, right? Because we established in the last episode there's different zones of people around. And so obviously one of the zones that Ymir was from in Marley, the people there worshipped her as one of the descendants of the king, even though we are under the understanding that Dinah was the last descendant on that continent that was still alive. So yeah, of course, and this probably happened after Dinah was turned into a Titan. So of course the Eldian people were probably clamoring to find someone else that was a descendant to kind of, revere as part of royal blood, because at that point, the only one left was Zeke, and who knows what Zeke, I'm sure, was with his grandparents or with the Marleyan government at this point, being probably brainwashed. If you can call, whatever you call brainwashing. At this point, it's like all sides, all perspectives. But it makes sense now that they worshipped Ymir because they thought she was a descendant of the original Titan. And that's why that Titan, when it found Ilse, thought that she was Ymir too, and was like, we're subjects of Ymir. And then it all makes sense now when Ymir started asking the questions like, where are you from? And the Titan's like, and it's like, why do you eat us? And it's like, And so that part hasn't been outright explained, and don't spoil me if we get explanation for it. And if we don't get explanation for it, don't spoil me. But my theory is still that there's probably a part of the Titans, since they are descended from the original Ymir and from the original 9 Titan shifters, there's probably a part of the pure Titan that knows the process that in order to become a Titan shifter, you have to eat a Titan shifter. And so my theory is that the Titans at this point, the pure Titans, they are hardwired instinctually that if they turn into that form, they need to go find a Titan shifter and eat them in order to regain their human form. So it's like, okay, that makes sense now. These Titans are just roaming around trying to find other Titan shifters because that's ingrained into their DNA because of Ymir. It's like, aha, okay, fair enough, right? It all kind of makes sense. And the sad part about all of this is that we weren't wrong. Humans have been fighting humans, but more specifically, Eldians have been fighting Eldians. This own race of people have been fighting their own kind for a century because the Marleyan government's trying to get rid of them. And they're like, well, instead of sending our own people to go fight Paradise and fight the king there that's behind the walls, instead of sending our own people, we'll just send their own kind. We'll send them in Titan form. And then that'll just, maybe it'll take care of itself, right? But then, of course, when the time crunch happened, they're like, now we need these resources now. Then they sent in Marcel, Bertolt, Reiner, and Annie to get the job done. So I'm really excited to watch the Lost Girls OVA now. I can kind of see why y'all were like, wait till season 3's over to watch that. And I'm like, makes sense now. Makes sense. The only other things I want to really note about this is that, and I'm going to get my notes here, the mark carving into the skin, the symbol of the patriot, the symbol of the restorationists. It looks like a cross, and I noted that in the last episode. But also it kind of is emblematic of when they cut their hands to become Titans. It's that cut on them, like the idea of self-infliction to, you know, represent them becoming Titans. I think that's a pretty cool little tidbit there. And then Eren being told by Grisha that the memories will guide you. That line makes so much more sense now. Grisha's like, my memories, the memories of myself, the memories of Frida, if you can access any of them, they're going to guide you. And Eren can access a little bit of Frida's. He saw the hair brushing scene, so there's a little bit there. I don't know how much more Eren will be able to access. I'm wondering if he's going to be able to access any of Kruger's memories, because my theory is that Grisha is going to eat Kruger and take his power. So, indeed. The only thing, watching Ilse's notebook, the only thing timeline-wise that doesn't make sense, and I'm sure it's going to be explained at some point, is that at the start of Elsie's notebook, it says 1850, or 850. It says 850 on there as the year. And we know that like 865 or 860, I think, or 864, one of those years is the year that Shiganshina is attacked. So it's like, okay, so maybe 5 years, might be 5 years later, 850, might be like, you know, 5 or 10 years later, whatever the case, whatever the timeline may be. But the wall's only been up for 107 years. And so I was like, why do they say year 850 when the wall's only been up 107 years and the people's memories were erased when they moved there? And it can't have to do with Ymir because that was 1800 years ago. So, and then the Great War or whatever didn't happen until 100 years. That whole 850 part is still a little odd to me why they specifically chose that year to be the year of the people, especially because the people don't remember past 100 years ago. I don't know. And maybe it's just an arbitrary number that the royal family made up to be like, yeah, this has been going on for lots of time, remember? And it's like, okay. So that's the only part that isn't quite adding up to me as far as the timeline goes, but we still have 2 episodes left of this season. Last episode felt like a penultimate episode of a season, right? No, we still have this one. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I don't know what to expect now. I'm assuming that Kruger, who, for the record, I don't know, maybe I'll dislike Kruger's character of this, so I freaking love Kruger. I'm like, I know hardly anything about him, but I love him. So I'm like, okay, Kruger, his character, I'm curious to see what he tells Grisha, what all he tells Grisha. I'm curious to see if we get any tiebacks to Zeke. I'm curious about that. I'm curious to see about, I'm assuming Grisha is going to take Kruger's power and go towards, which explains, and we'll get confirmation this episode, I'm assuming, which explains that no, Grisha did not have his memory wiped. He made all that up so that he could infiltrate the walls and learn about what's been happening inside the Wall Kingdom for the last 100 years. That all makes sense. I'm very curious to know if he gets inside the wall, if he goes to visit the royal family and talks to them. I'm curious to know how that's all going to work out. I don't know. But I'm assuming that Grisha did not lose his memory, that he just faked it so that he could get inside the wall, and he made friends with Keith, and then he met Carla, and at this point he's lost Dinah. I don't know if he'll come in contact with Dinah between now and when he goes into the wall, because he's got to get there, but, or maybe he looks for her and he can't find her. I don't know. But yeah, that's really tragic. Losing Dinah, like he lost his first wife and his son, and then he started a new life and had a new wife and a new son. And then, as it turns out, his new son killed his old wife because the old wife killed the new wife. What a soap opera, right? So yeah, I don't usually record early in the morning, but I'm like, you know what? I got my coffee. I've waited enough time. I want to watch episode 21, and then maybe I'll wait a day or two and watch the season finale. So, yeah. So, yeah, ringing in the new year with these episodes. It feels like somebody was commenting because episodes 17 and 18 came out around, episodes 17, 18, 19 came out around Christmas and New Year's. It's like, man, what a time for Attack on Titan. Happy holidays. Here's a lot of grief, sorrow, and too much information. So I've talked for 10 minutes. Let's do this, shall we? Episode 58. Somebody was like, don't look at the episode title. And I'm like, I can't avoid it. It's going to be there when I start the episode. But Attack Titan. Okay. All right. So episode 58, season 3, episode 21. The penultimate episode, y'all. And we're going to start it here in 3, 2, 1. Let's do this. I thought that now that we were getting answers and things were all coming together and seeming like they were all making sense, that I was like, I was a little worried because I was like, Isayama, you're revealing a lot of your hand right now. So what else? What other mysteries do you have for us? And then this episode happened. And again, we're getting answers, but then more questions. Many more questions. And there's still things. I haven't gone back and rewatched the season 2 ED. I haven't. I'm going to wait till the season's over to do that. But I have not yet. And so I was like, there's still questions that are unanswered, especially about Cena, Maria, and Rose, the 3 kids that I think are the founding Titans' daughters, or at least King Fritz, King Reese that went in with the walls. I think they're still his daughters. And I think there's still unanswered questions. And there's still some with the Ackermans and Mikasa that are not answered. So, but yeah. So we got a lot of answers in this episode. Many questions, lots of answers. I think Ymir's dead. It's not been confirmed yet. Well, it kind of was. Yeah, it kind of was with that whole ending with the we're gonna go back and I've got it pulled up on Crunchyroll. We're gonna go back and relook at that still, that last part of the memory, but I think Ymir's dead. Damn it! No! And Ymir said she wanted to marry Historia. That's why we can't have nice things. That's why we can't have nice things. Ugh. So yeah, okay. I had to bring Whiteboard Kun out because I'm like, we got to do some calculations. I am an English major. Math is not my subject. So a lot of you that are like, the years are, if you do the math, I'm like, math, my side of the brain does not compute for math. I'm on the analytical literary side of the brain, the creative side of the brain. I am not on the hardcore logistical data statistics side of the brain. That is not my forte, first and foremost. Math was I always was okay at math. I could do math, but I hated it because I was like, meh. So we got to do some math because 13 years. Welp, Aaron's used up over half of that. Just being a kid. Awesome. But Grisha didn't have a choice. So it's like, yeah, no, Grisha didn't have a choice. Now it makes more sense. So, okay. Yep, getting answers. Getting distinct answers. Aaron Kruger. I freaking love him. I love him. He may be one of my favorite side characters. I don't know. And he's done horrible things and he admits to it, but he has like an Erwin vibe to him. I think characters like Erwin and Levi, I'm like, I like those characters. He has like an Erwin vibe to him in that he very much understands and is self-aware of all the decisions he's made and the price of those decisions. He's like Erwin in that he's very aware of what he's done and he's atoning for his sins by doing this. And so it's like, but there's this tie to like gods and monsters, gods and devils, and the truth, and it's what we make of it, and the idea of everything being connected, and like, yeah, we got so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. But yeah, okay. You know what, Isayama? You've been doing these back-to-back episodes that have been really great. You had Friends and Bystander, which ties to Hero and Midnight Sun, which ties to That Day and Attack Titan. Like 3 sets in one season of back-to-back amazing episodes. I'm like, okay. And I guess it's a trilogy if you look at 16, 17, and 18. And then I don't know what episode 22 is going to be like, but man, damn, Isayama's like built this whole story up and it's all coming together. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. But yeah, Aaron Kruger. And then yeah, at the very end there, he tells Grisha, he's like, you may not forget everything. You'll probably remember things slowly. You know, you'll remember things slowly because all these memories are connected. Okay, so that kind of, we're going to talk about that at the very end with Kruger knowing Mikasa and Armin's name. The idea that all of this, that it's connected, everything's connected, even possibly into the future. So it would kind of maybe make sense that, okay, with the whole Eldian thing, it would kind of maybe make sense that Eren would have that dream at the very beginning of episode 1. Because like Kruger was saying at the end, he's like, whose memories are these? How do I know this? And it's funny because I don't know if any of you ever experienced this, but I experience it all the time. The idea that I'll have a dream of something happening and then later something kind of does happen like it. I don't know how to describe it, but I have dreams all the time, like from when I was a kid. And then something will happen and I'm like, this is like a sense of deja vu. Like I feel like this has already happened or I've dreamed about it. And it'll be the most mundane, tiniest of things. The tiniest of things, but it feels like it's happened. And I'm like, that's so weird, right? It's so weird. But him establishing that maybe, you know, if we're looking at, and the idea of a pawn of the devil or a miracle of God, like which is it? And does it matter? It could be either one. But there is the idea that there's been some divine influence on Ymir, obviously, because turning into a Titan and having these powers, there's some supernatural or divine element to it, right? And so the idea that all these Eldians, through interactions with that spirit, interactions with that divine power, or that supernatural power, again, however you look at it, the idea that is connecting all of them together, right? And so the idea that there could be, because if you think about it, if it was like a godlike power, or if it was influenced by a deity, then yeah, being able to see into the future, it kind of goes with the territory, right? Because a god is supposedly omnipotent and can see everything, so sure, you could see kind of into the future. So maybe that's what Kruger is experiencing, like a premonition of things to come, like everything's connecting. So connecting with Grisha, who will be known to connect with the founding Titan in the future, who will connect with Eren, who knows Mikasa and Armin. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's that connection, that all these Eldians have a connector together. And we're going to talk about this whole bloodline, everything tying together. It's fascinating. But yeah, okay, tying together all this stuff. I'm going to first and foremost say that I'm probably going to watch episode 22. At this time, as I'm recording this, episode 19 is about to come out on Patreon. So I'm recording a bit ahead, but I need to. And then episode 17. So I am predicting I'm probably going to have to record episode 22 like way before episode 21 airs on Patreon, like way before episode 18 airs on YouTube. So I'm going to have to record this part because of scheduling and everything going on with the holiday season and the New Year's. I'm going to have to record it ahead to be ahead of the game. So I am fully predicting that even up until episodes 1 and 2 of season 4, I'm probably going to be answering comments from this season, from this time, because there's just so much. So I'm probably going to have to be like delving into the comment section way ahead of time. And that's okay, because I'll answer your comments in the comments section, of course. But if there's something that comes up in the comments, like it usually does, that I'll want to mention, it may be well into season 4 before I'm tapping into stuff from this season. So just to forewarn you, I'm going to be doing some backtreading when I get to season 4, I'm sure. Just because I want to stay ahead of spoilers and ahead of everything. Because I can't, like, not being spoiled with these 2 episodes has been amazing because it's been such a shocker. And so everybody has been saying, they're like, oh, just wait till season 4. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be revelation after revelation after revelation. So I'm going to need probably, I'm probably going to need to watch ahead to stay away from spoilers. So apologies ahead of time. But God, these episodes. A lot of things making sense that didn't make sense before, like with Uri, with Eren's nose bleeding. Like, Eren's used up already. I mean, he became a Titan shifter at age 10. He's used up 5 years already. Maybe he has 8 years left. God, and Mikasa. we got a lot of things to talk about, so we need to get into this episode. We just need to get into it. Okay. So yeah, as Aaron Kruger and smashing them like a fruit being juiced. And just toss them back into the sea. And then, of course, Grisha is thinking, oh, you probably don't know what the sea is like, so I need to talk to you about it and explain what the sea is. I should explain what the sea is. And I like that he's already kind of smoking a body of salt water that covers 70% of the world's surface. And then we get into the OP. Yay! So, okay. So, at least to the knowledge of Grisha, which Grisha would probably know because Marley is connected with the rest of the world. So this is probably true then. This is probably true because Marley, the people where Grisha was at, did have access to the same information somewhat that the Marleyan people did. So the idea that the world is covered 70% by water is probably accurate. So in the world, through events, because this is technically supposed to be Earth, only much into the future. So, like the second ice age has happened, some apocalyptic event has happened, something has happened that has caused the world to be covered 70% by water. Because I don't think that that's the case. It's been a long time. I'm going to look that up real quick. Okay, so I'm going to look this up real quick because I'm going to feel really stupid if it's actually how it is. Okay, and it may be that case now. Oh yeah, no, that's true now. Whoa, okay, yeah, I'm dumb. Yeah, just ignore me. I was like, that seems like a lot. I forget, that our entire world is naturally covered with 70% water. Just forget that fact. Wow, I feel really dumb. So just ignore that I know anything outside what I researched on Attack on Titan. So yeah, so basically it's like the world is now. Okay, no apocalyptic event, no ice age melting, whatever. It's just as it is now. So good to know. Yeah, I was just waiting for like a YouTube comment to be like, actually, the world is covered with 70% water. I'm like, I'm not a geologist or a geographer. Sorry. I'm an English major. So, okay. So, Aaron Kruger, old Aaron Kruger, who inherited the Attack Titan. Yes, okay. So they all have names. They were given them. So I'm going to take out to the side here the names of our Titans. I'm going to put them over here to the side. So we have the Coordinate, who is the founding Titan, aka, and the connector of everything, basically. They are the connector of all things for all intents and purposes. And then we have the Colossal Titan. We have the Armored Titan. And we know we have the Attack Titan. And we're going to put Beast in quotation marks because that's what our Survey Corps called them. But that's all we know right now. And then we have the Female Titan, the Pack Mule, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The one that we have question mark by, and whatever Marcel's were. So there are 4 unnamed Titans that we don't technically know the official titles of, that they call themselves, right? Okay. But we do know the Coordinate, the Colossal, the Armored, and the Attack Titan. And the Beast Titan we'll just put in quotation marks because I don't know if that's... Well, they say the War Chief, though. I'm going to put Beast / War Chief. Could be the War Chief Titan or the Beast Titan. Yeah. But yeah, so the Attack Titan is the owl. I love it. I love it. Because owls are technically predators. So it makes sense. But they're smart, right? And he says, owl, who are you? And so he's got the bloody nose already. And he kind of has like an Uri vibe to him. Aaron Kruger does. He has an Uri vibe to him. In that he's got he just looks aged, right? Yeah. I'm Aaron Kruger. Okay. I possess one of the 9 Titans. Yep. Okay, I'm a subject of Ymir just like you. And Grisha's like, so you pretended to be a Marleyan and just infiltrated? Yeah. And then so apparently there are blood tests. Okay, so there's something to do with the blood that distinct. So we're getting some factoids here, and I want to write them out in something different because we're getting a lot of facts thrown at us, not only about the world, but about the Eldians versus regular people, right? So with the Eldians, I'm going to make a note of some things that we've learned. There's something different about their blood, which is like inherent in their DNA, right? Their blood distinctly is different enough so that they can do a test to determine if you're Eldian or if you're not. Makes sense. That's interesting. But he forged them basically to get inside. Okay. Doctors make good spies. Oh, ha, ha, ha. I'm going to put down some of Aaron's lines that I really like. I'm going to call him Kruger because otherwise I'm going to confuse him with Aaron Yeager. So I love that line. I'm going to put like good spies. I love that line because I'm finding connections in this episode to other shows I'm watching, which is kind of fun. So you all can't read that. So I'm finding connections to other shows that I'm watching right now, which is a lot of fun. So for example, this idea of doctors make good spies. I've been watching Bungo Stray Dogs, and in that show, one of the doctor characters is called Maury. And in that series, Maury is a doctor, but he kind of has like an underground clinic to get information. Makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have all sorts of clientele come in. You can learn all sorts of insight into things. So it's kind of how Grisha got into the whole situation to begin with. He was a doctor, and one of the patriots came in, Greece, and that's how he found out about the whole underground movement and everything. Makes sense. And so when he goes inside the wall, that makes perfect sense because he tells Keith back in episode 11, he's like, I do remember one thing. I'm a doctor. And it's like, so yeah, well, actually, maybe Grisha did lose his memories when he became the Attack Titan. Maybe he did, right? Maybe he did lose his memories because Kruger makes the point at the end of the episode by saying, you may lose some of your memories now, but you'll gain them back slowly but surely. You'll gain them back. And that kind of goes the same way with Ymir, etc. Okay? So yeah, so Grisha remembering that he's a doctor, it allowed him to become the perfect spy inside the walls. He got to get all sorts of information from the people of Shiganshina and from Keith about the scouts, about the world, everything. So that's awesome. Good. So he was able to forge the blood sample for Kruger to get him inside. And he's like, in all honesty, you did very well. But in terms of results, Greece had every right to grieve like he did. So yeah, it's like, Grisha, you did a good job forming the restorationists and leading them, but then the end result with Zeke was just awful. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for Grisha when he says this. I was a useless father, a useless husband, and a useless man. God, Aaron inherits it quite well, like falling not far from the tree in terms of that. Grisha just doesn't think he's special at all. Grisha thinks he's worthless. And that mentality with Kruger here is kind of the exact same way he felt, that Aaron felt in front of Historia and in front of Mikasa. In both situations, Aaron felt like he was useless. Like he wasn't able to prevent Hannes from dying, just like Grisha wasn't able to prevent Dinah or his friends from becoming Titans or Greece from dying. And he felt like he was useless in terms of being able to help any cause, right? So the idea of Grisha and Aaron being so similar, yeah, it doesn't fall far from the tree, right? I felt so bad for Grisha in that moment because it's like, you're not useless. And it shows him standing atop the wall there at the port with his fingerless hands, saying, why am I the only one who remains as a human? And yet, and him looking down at his hand or whatever. And then, yeah, Aaron Kruger there. Grisha's like, Dinah was someone special, being a subject of Ymir with royal blood. Why? And I like that he questions. He's like, she could tap into the Titan's true power. If you hadn't jumped to keep me quiet, then Dinah wouldn't have become a Titan. And I like that he grabs him. He doesn't even have thumbs. He just grabs him with the bloody stumps. And man, Kruger is tall, y'all. Kruger is a really tall dude. Like, I imagine Grisha's pretty tall, like probably 6 foot, but this guy's probably like 6'2", 6'3", Kruger is. Because he's really tall in that moment. Why did you only let me live? Answer me. And yeah, and he's like, don't your fingers hurt enough? And yeah, he's like, thanks for the consideration. God, and that smile that Grisha gives when he says, thank you so much for your concern, that is a very much the Aaron smile that he gives in episode 10 to Reiner and Bertolt. He's like, oh, thanks for telling me. I'm going to kill you. It's the same smile. Oh, man. Yeah. He's like, you didn't seem to care so much when you're chopping off my fingers. And then, yeah, he's like, if you hadn't gone on a rampage with your Titans sooner, wouldn't the others be Titans? He's like, why did you just let me live? What was the whole point? And then he collapses. And the whole point was because Kruger needed him alone to take his power away. He needed the others gone. And there's more to it than that. Kruger establishes that his whole journey to get to this point, he's had to do unspeakable things and do horrible things to his own people to get to this exact moment where he was going to give Grisha the power. Like, it was all leading up to this. And so, yeah, he had to do these awful things. You look pale. And that ties back to episode 10 and 11 with Aaron, like him looking pale, which Aaron looking pale already, and he's only like 8 years into the process. I don't like that. I guess because Aaron's exerted himself so much. He's exerted himself so much, even though he has technically like 7 or 8 years left. Okay. But yeah, Kruger wanted to get Grisha alone because once Grisha becomes a Titan, he didn't want him to be distracted. The same thing like with Story and Rod. They didn't want, and the same way when Grisha took Aaron out by himself, he didn't want any distractions. He just wanted Aaron to see him and eat him and not be distracted by anything. Same thing with Armin eating Bertolt. It's all same song, right? Yeah. And then Kruger saying, it wasn't just fellow patriots. I've severed thousands of fingers from the subject of Ymir and made them into Titans. Like, I've been doing this for a long time to keep my guys inside. And I've been doing it for the sake of Eldia. So yeah, Kruger, I'm seeing a lot of parallels to Erwin, right? A lot of parallels to Erwin. But also, again, we're going to talk about Kenny too. Lots of parallels to Kenny and Erwin, right? Because Kenny killing his military police, killing his own people for the sake of his dream. Erwin killing people for the sake of his dream. And so I'm assuming that Kruger's dream is to restore, I mean, he tells Grisha towards the end, he's like, it's to restore Eldia to its former glory and free its people. And so he's like, yeah, the irony in it is that I had to kill all these people to get to this point. Because you're the one. Grisha doesn't think he's special at all. Grisha's like, I'm not special. I'm a useless human. I just made all these mistakes. And Kruger, by the end of it, is establishing that that's exactly why I'm choosing you. Because you have made mistakes and you have committed sins and you're going to spend the rest of your life atoning for them. It's like, okay. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. But yeah, he's like, I did all these horrible things for the sake of my country because that was the only way I could keep hidden. And he says, I don't have much time, Grisha, and I'm trusting you with the final task. Not anyone else, just you. Like, he made Grisha special, right? And we'll talk about that towards the end of this episode, right? He's like, the final task is to get the founding Titan. He's like, the day I first met you. And I love this parallel, right? So this parallel from when Grisha was a kid at the airfield, standing in front of the Zeppelin with Kruger, that parallel of that time to now. So if you think about it, how long has that been? He said 15 years ago, right? He said that was 15 years ago that his daughter died. But Kruger establishes that you only have the power of Ymir for 13 years. So at the time that he met Grisha, he hadn't become the Attack Titan yet. He had infiltrated, but he hadn't become the Attack Titan yet. So that's interesting. That's really interesting, right? That's fascinating that the Attack Titan, he hadn't become it yet. Okay. All right. When he first met him, which is, okay, fascinating. So then you wouldn't have festered, if your sister hadn't died, you wouldn't have festered enough hatred to come this far. And he's like, why? Is that the reason you chose me? And he says, it's part of it. And he says, the country, your father, yourself, the hate in your eyes was enough to burn the world to ashes. And that ties back to Bystander and back to episode 3 of season 1, when Keith was like, Aaron had this look in his eyes that could set the world ablaze. It's that same hatred. It was that same hatred that guided him to this point. Okay. And he's like, I was once like that too. The royal family had stayed behind and formed a revolution. So we're getting back into the history, and my father was part of it. So basically we're going back to, if you think back to 100 years ago or whatever, then the family that was, the parts of the royal family and whatever that was left behind, okay, they formed the revolution within Marley that we see now, like the restorationists or whatever. And his father was part of like protecting the royal family, and they were along with it. So it makes sense why Kruger knew Dinah, because his family had been working closely with the royal family. That makes sense. And he said they accomplished nothing at all and were burned alive. And I was so young, all I could do is peek through the closet door and watch. Huh. So, yeah, his father being part of the revolution and Kruger being part of it all. Okay. There's a tiny sliver of me that wonders if Kruger was related to the royal family, but then, because then I'm like, okay, well, would that connect to the fact that Aaron could use some of the founding Titan powers because of the attack Titan passing on to him? Is there part of it with that? So there's a tiny sliver of my tinfoil hat theory that is like that Kruger is related to the royal family, or just doesn't realize it, or who knows. And that's how, because Kruger tapping into those memories at the end, the memories of the future. I'm gonna make a note of that. That's my little tinfoil hat theory. That he says all I could do is peek through the closet door and watch. Like his father kept him safe. So I'm gonna put my tiny tinfoil hat theory down there of if Kruger maybe is an illegitimate, I'm spelling illegitimate wrong, relation to the Fritzes. Maybe an illegitimate relation. Could be. We don't know. Probably not. But my tinfoil hat theory would be, it could be that is the case because he kept talking about having these visions and these memories. Or maybe that's something that's connected to all the 9 Titans, right? That they all can kind of see maybe into the future a little bit. We don't know. Because when he has those memories of Mikasa and Armin later, even though he has no clue who they are or whose memories they are, maybe it's something that's just connecting them all together. And he's seeing the future, right? So if he had some royal blood in him, maybe he could see into the future just a little bit. Or maybe it's something to do with the attack Titan in general, right? Maybe it's something to do with the attack Titan in general, because he says later to Grisha that the attack Titan is always moving forward and always moving on. So if that's the case, maybe the attack Titan somehow has the ability to see kind of into the future. And so maybe that gets passed on. Like Kruger passed that ability to Grisha. And when Grisha had Aaron, even though Aaron didn't have the attack Titan in him, maybe there's some part of that that's connected. Because I think all these Eldians are connected together, whether they realize it or not. They're all connected together because their power and their blood all stems back to this founding Titan. That's how the founding Titan was able to erase their memories, because they're all connected because they all share blood together. Okay, we need to get further on into this. Yeah. Ever since then, I've sworn revenge on Marley and the revival of Eldia. And then all I managed to do is cut the fingers off my fellow patriots and kick them off this wall and turn them into Titans. It's because of the things I've done that my true identity was never discovered, but I wasn't living out my dream. I'm no different than when I was. I love this line. I'm still looking at the world through a crack in the closet. I love that line. I love the line of looking through the world. Looking at the world. Looking at the world through a crack in the closet. I love that line. Like he's saying he's a coward. He's like, I've been doing all this stuff to keep the dream alive, right? But I'm a coward because I'm not facing it head on, right? Yeah. And then he tells Grisha, well, he doesn't tell Grisha anything after that, but he says, I love that. I love the idea of that he's kind of saying he's sort of a coward. He's like, I've, swore revenge on Marley for the sake of my people, but the most I've been able to do up until this point is just, infiltrate and keep out of sight. But because I've kept out of sight, my own people have died and I've killed them and nothing's really been resolved yet. So he's like, I haven't been able to live up to the power that's been given to me. I was given the power of the Attack Titan, but I haven't been able to use it because I was too afraid of getting found out. I was too afraid of my own. It's the idea going back to, he's like, I was too selfish and afraid of my own life getting taken away that I didn't do anything. It's like him as a kid looking through the crack in the closet was just trying to keep himself safe. Others died, but he selfishly remained okay because he gave up those people's lives to save himself. And he's basically telling Grisha, he's like, my whole life and all these years these 13 years I've had this power, instead of using it like you suggested to stop the Marleyan people, I've basically just hid myself to keep myself safe. And now I'm about to die and I can't do that anymore. I need to pass on this power to someone that is going to actually use it. And I wasn't able to do that. I was too cowardly to use it. I wasn't able to be selfless and think of the big picture, right? I only thought of myself. And it's like, I love it. I love Kruger's self-awareness. It's very similar to Erwin and very similar to Kenny, that they know their flaws and they're willing to openly talk about them. But then at the end of the day, they're still people that have passion and a mission and a dream. And they're not necessarily evil people, right? But like Erwin, and I would argue Kenny is not really an evil person, but they are very selfish and they're self-aware about it. And it's fascinating. So yeah, so there's that. And I love this shot of him and Grisha just sitting on top of the wall and there's just the sky around them, the sky and the sea. I love the imagery. I love it. I'm going to take a picture of it. Because it's just really good. This episode, as the episode went on, here's the thing. As the episode went on, it was slowly fading to twilight. I love it. And the symbolism Isayama uses of one day ending and another day beginning, I absolutely love that. Because he did that with Erwin riding atop his horse in the twilight, and then the whole thing with Midnight Sun. And Kruger here, Kruger's sun is setting, and Grisha's about to take over for him. It's like, ah. So yeah. And then Grisha's like, tell me, Owl, what is the task left for me? And Kruger's like, okay, to infiltrate the walls and retake the founding Titan. Yep. After you inherit my Titan, that is. And Grisha's like, well, wait a minute. What did you say? That would mean that you would die. And he's like, yeah, I'll be eaten by you as a Titan. You'll take the founding Titan from its owner the same way. Yep. And he's like, why aren't you doing it? And that's when he tells him this bombshell. Those who inherit the power of the 9 Titans perish in 13 years. So, yeah, those who inherit the power of the Titans. So the 9 Titans only live 13 years. That's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time at all. At all. Right? Nope. And so, yeah, I inherited this power 13 years ago. So Kruger's like, I'm going to die. And the owl called it the curse of Ymir. So Aaron's recalling all these memories and calling him the owl. I guess, and it makes sense why Grisha's calling him the owl and Aaron's calling him the owl, because Kruger has his name. And so Armin's writing this down. The founder of Ymir lived that long after her powers awakened, so it's only appropriate we live that long too. So the original Ymir only lived for 13 years after gaining the power, and that was it. Okay. God, I get such Bilbo, Frodo Baggins vibes from Armin. I've talked about that in a previous episode in reaction, but the idea of Armin writing out the narration and everything, it reminds me of Hanji. It reminds me of Bilbo and Frodo Baggins, which, if you've watched Lord of the Rings, it kind of makes sense because at the end of a certain period of time, God, there is a big Lord of the Rings reference here. I'm guessing Isayama's a fan of medieval fantasy stories, medieval-esque fantasy stories, because yeah, there is a connection to Lord of the Rings. Spoilers to Lord of the Rings. Skip the next 30 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled about the end of the Lord of the Rings. But Frodo, after he gets back from his experience at Mount Doom and everything that happens in the story, he's, slowly dying essentially, and he makes the choice at the end to kind of, they call it going to the other world, but it's essentially like a metaphor for passing on. And he crosses over, the gray shore and everything to the far shore, and he leaves behind this book and legacy for his friends and family to read. It's kind of similar to this in a way, right? But yeah, so this next line is so heartbreaking. Armin says, I've got 13 years left. That means Armin's only going to live to be 28. That's it. That's younger than me. Like, Armin's only going to live to be 28 years old. That's so sad. Yeah. And so this is the part where we have to do some math, right? This is where we got to do some math, because I'm wondering about Zeke now. When did Zeke gain the power of the Titan? That's the big question, right? So you have the founding Titan that is now Eren, right? And Eren has only 7 to 8 years left to live, right? You have Armin now. So basically, if Eren's 15 now, he's only going to be... God, Eren's not going to be very old. He's only got... If he's 15 and has 8 years left, he's only going to be 23 when he dies. Oh. So yeah. Yeah, if he's 15 now and he lives 8 more years, he's going to be about 23. That's so tragic. And Armin is only going to be 28. Now, Reiner inherited the powers when he was about 12. And it's been, he's what, 16 or 17 now? So if we assume Reiner gained this power, if Reiner's 16 or 17 now, and he gained it around the time Shiganshina, or before Shiganshina falled, so he's probably had 5 or 6 years too. So Reiner's not going to live very long. Reiner's only probably got 7 or 8 years left. So you have Reiner, who's probably going to be about 23. And then you have, well, the attack Titan is also Eren, so that's tied up with that. I'm hoping it doesn't compound. I hope that doesn't mean that it's compounded. I don't think it is, because he inherited the attack and coordinate at the same time. So... But I don't know, because since he inherited both, is it shortened because of that? We don't know. We don't know that. And the Beast Titan is the big question mark, because we can assume that right now, old Zeke is, if we do the math, Zeke was maybe 5 or 6. We need to do the math on this. I'm probably going to erase this. But, okay, Grisha was around 1920 when he had Zeke, right? And then he was around 25 when he left the wall, right? So that would have been, Zeke would have been around 5 or 6, right? Okay. And then, so I'm assuming that Zeke is around, excuse my hand. I'm assuming that Zeke is around 21-ish years old, maybe 22 to 23. Okay, right now. But the question with Zeke is, when did he gain the Beast Titan powers? When did that happen? So Zeke may still have years left, or Zeke may be close to the end. We don't know. We don't know how much time the Beast Titan has left. That's the thing. We have a clear idea of Bertel, of Reiner and Armin and Eren. We have an idea about them. Whoever's gaining Ymir's Titan has 13 years left, so they got a while. And the others we don't know. So, well, Annie is the female Titan. Annie is one of these, and Annie probably has till they're about 23. Yikes. But the others we don't know about. Okay. That's so tragic, though, when Armin's realizing how much time he has left. That's so tragic. Yeah, 13 years left. And is like 8 years left, not even. And God, Mikasa, God, I hate this for Mikasa in this moment, because Mikasa is realizing that her two best friends in the world that she's grown up with their whole life, are not going to make it to 30. And she probably is. Like, that's such a heartbreaking moment, because when you think about it, Mikasa is realizing that her two best friends, the two people she cares about more than anything else in the world, are not going to outlive her. She's going to outlive them. That's awful. That's so sad. That's so sad. Right? Right? And if you think about it, we'll talk about this later in the episode, that's so horrifying and sad, but also in the same vein, what's also sad is the fact that even if Eren and Armin have kids, even if they have children, they're not going to live to see their kids grow up. The whole thing with Frida and Uri and everything makes total sense now. It makes total sense, right? Okay. That's so sad. Because, yeah, if, like, Eren and Armin have any children or anything, they're not going to live to see them but, like, a few years. That's horribly sad. I don't like that at all. No. And, yeah, Mikasa says this has to be a mistake. And Eren looking at her like, yeah, no, I get it. I get why you're really sad about all this. It's not a mistake. But she's like, it's wrong. Yeah, and Armin and Eren are both looking at her like they understand why she's so sad and that she doesn't want it to be this way. To put a timeline on things. And then Eren says, if one possessing the power of the Titan, this is something else I was wondering about, is if one possessing the power of the Titan dies without passing it on, what happens? I'm like, does the power just go away? No. Then the power is inherited by a baby yet to be born by a subject of Ymir. So the power passes on anyway. There's nothing you can do about it. Either you pass it on to someone you know, the power passes on regardless. Right? So here's the thing about it all that's kind of crazy. Side note, I'm watching Yona of the Dawn right now at the same time as this show, and this is the weirdest thing, but I've been comparing Yona of the Dawn kind of to like as the shoujo version of Attack on Titan. Yeah! I won't spoil anything for y'all, except that you should go watch Yona of the Dawn. It's amazing. You should watch it. It's a great show. Don't be discouraged by the fact that it's a shoujo. It's wonderful. But there's an element of the mythos in that series that's kind of similar to this power passing on regardless. Just saying, I was like, wow. In the moment watching the reaction, I was like, that's Yona of the Dawn. Interesting. But, yeah. So, the power is going to be inherited by a baby yet to be born by a subject of Ymir. So, essentially, that makes sense. Because if they're all connected through the power that Ymir originally founded and originally received, if they're all connected through that makes sense that no matter what happens, the power of the 9 Titans, the spirit is still going to get passed on, whether you like it or not. So, this conflict, these Titans are never fully going away until every Eldian is killed, right? That's the Marleyan thing. They're like, until every Eldian is out of the picture, then the power is going to keep passing on. And that kind of makes sense why they want all the Eldians to be destroyed, because then if there's no Eldians left, that once the Titans go away, then there'll be nothing to pass on, supposedly, by this logic. So yeah, it would make sense why you would want to keep tabs on who inherits these 9 Titans' powers, because otherwise it's just going to go to some random baby. It's going to be inherited by a baby yet to be born. So that's terrifying that some random child will inherit this power. So then that brings up an idea. That brings up a curious idea that if a baby is born with the power of one of the 9 Titans, if a baby's born with it, then will that baby only live to be 13? And they've got to pass it on before then? How do they find out that baby has the power of the 9 Titans? I'm assuming it's happened before and that's how they know. But But how will they determine that? That's the interesting part. Or does it start the moment you turn into a Titan and from that point on you only have 13 years? How does that work? Well, I guess not, because Aaron didn't turn into a Titan for like 5 years after he inherited the power, but he still had it. So, or 3 years technically after it. So it's like, no, I guess it was 5. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that. So if a baby inherits the power of one of these 9 Titans from birth, it only has 13 years to live, and then I guess it dies. And maybe that's when the people find out. They're like, oh, this child is randomly dying at a young age. Could they have had could they have had a Titan shifter power in them this whole time? And then they like turned into a Titan and ate them to find out. I'm assuming that's how they discovered that fact. That's really interesting. Huh. Okay. So then that stands to reason. If the coordinates, the founding Titan, eventually dies without the power. So if Aaron dies with the attack Titan and the founding Titan's power in him, then will it randomly go to someone else? Like a random baby? Will that happen? By a baby yet to be born. So it's going to be inherited by a baby that's not been born yet. So if Aaron dies and has the attack Titan powers and the coordinate power in him, will the coordinate power just go to some random baby then? Some random child to become the founding Titan? How does that work? Because then it would be like, why did you even care about the bloodline of the royal blood then? If somebody that's the coordinate, unless that was the narrative the whole time. I talked back a few episodes ago about if Rod Reese at the founding Titan created part of the narrative to keep the founding Titan's powers in the family so that the people in the wall would stay within the wall, right? So let's talk about that. The idea that the founding Titan created this narrative to keep the power in the family, because the founding Titan knew that as long as my power keeps going to one of my family members, I can control them. As long as they have Fritz/Reese blood, I can control them if it stays in the family. But if it goes to some random person that they can control the power, then who's keeping my people inside the walls? Nothing is, right? So as long as it stayed in the family, then humanity stayed, then the Eldians stayed in the walls. Right? But if some random person gets the power, then no one has to stay. Right? So it would destroy everything the founding Titan made the walls and moved all of his people in there to keep them safe. And if some random person gets the powers, then that's all destroyed. Then they could just leave the walls and go back to the outside world. And that's not what the founding Titan wanted. So it makes sense that they made up this narrative saying, yeah, we've got to keep it in the family or the full power doesn't work. You won't inherit all my memories. And that may be true. It may be that if you're not a Reese family member or a Fritz family member, you're not going to inherit the memories that the founding Titan had. That may be true. But it doesn't mean that the power is just tied to the Reese family member. And we see that through Aaron. So we're talking about this. We're going to talk about this. But yeah. So yeah, the power, it's as if all the subjects of Ymir are connected by something we can't see. Yes, they are all connected. Everybody is connected. They're all connected by the power of Ymir. That original founding Titan. It's blood. It makes sense. That's why every Eldian can become a Titan to begin with, because they're all connected by their blood, because the spirit of the 9 Titans technically has the potential to reside in any of them. So yeah, that all makes sense. And Aaron looks so much older in this moment. Like he's matured so much over the course of the season, which he's, basically learned his entire origin story in this entire season. But he says, one inheritor said they saw paths, the blood and bones that form a Titan. And we see that as the audience when the Titans form, like the DNA strands and everything, they saw paths. And at times, even memories and thoughts are sent through those paths. And then we type out that all paths cross at a single coordinate. In other words, that's the founding Titan. That's the Aurora Borealis deity. That's all the paths tying together, the founding Titan, right? that they all connect together, and even memories are connected. So, yeah, no, that makes sense now. Going back to the end of the episode with Kruger saying that when he mentioned Armin and Mikasa, and we're all like, how do you know about Armin and Mikasa? Even the memories are connected, even of those not yet born. That's the crazy thing. Because it's like how the fact that someone that's not even born yet can become one of the Titan shifters, if that's true, which we're assuming it is, that someone that's not even born yet can have the powers of the attack Titan, the coordinate, the armor Titan, whatever, transferred in them before they're even born, then it stands to reason that the memories of those who aren't even born yet can transfer among those as well. And Kruger is one of the 9 Titans, so they're the most connected to Ymir. So it stands to reason, the reason why he can see the memories of Armin and Mikasa and Eren in the future is because they're all going to be Titan shifters. All the Titan shifters, their memories are more closely tied together than any of the other Eldians, but all the Eldians are connected together. It's all, the dots are connecting, right? The founding Titan. Yeah. And I love that. That's going to be the thumbnail. The shot of Eren in the cell looking over and seeing his father. And it's like him and Grisha are having a conversation with one another. And you can tell how much Grisha and Eren look different in that thing. Like Eren definitely takes after Carla, except for the hair and eye color. But I love that shot of Eren looking at his father, like remembering in that moment. I love the idea of these memories all connecting. And then we tie back to Kruger. Every single subject of Ymir is connected to the coordinate. The founding Titan is connected to everyone. That's how they can control their memories. That's how they can wipe them. That's how they can control them. And it's because of the founding Titan's ability. It all stems from Ymir. That's why they're subjects of Ymir. And I loved it. It's not funny, but when Grisha's like, who was the founder of Ymir exactly? And he holds up his hands, he's like, what do I do with my stumps? Like his little nubbins. Again, reminding me of Eren in episode 10 of season 2 when he has the little nubbins. It's, God, Isayama, just making all the parallels. Like, did you want parallels? Welcome to Attack on Titan. So yeah, this question is important. Who was the founder of Ymir exactly? And how Kruger explains it, I love. So, according to Marley, Ymir was a pawn of the devil. And the devil used her to make a contract to gain power on Earth or whatever. And then, during the Eldian Empire era, she was a miracle of God. And so to Eldia, Ymir is a miracle of God. Right? And we get that awesome imagery. Some say she touched the source of all living matter. Who's to say that they're wrong? The only truth in this world is that there is no truth. The truth is there is no truth. I love this. And the idea that anyone can become a god or a devil. And then there's like an ellipses there. Not really in the dialogue, but all it takes is for people to believe it. That is so crucial to this whole story. And the fact that Eren's getting these memories too. All it takes is for the people to believe it. That says so much. That's such a profound thing, right? The idea that there is no truth. That we've talked about this since season 2 ending. You know, who is the enemy? It doesn't matter. It's just from perspective. There is no, the idea, and that's so sad in a way because we tie back to Erwin. Erwin was a slavery to the truth, and that's the sad part. There was no truth. It's all just a matter of perspective. All that was in that basement, it's not like a truth about anything. It's just history. It's just the memories of one person recorded down. But whatever Grisha records, someone could refute it, right? It ties back to the idea that anyone can be a god or a devil. They're like, they made Erwin into a devil, right? Erwin was viewed as both the savior of humanity in a way for what he did with the Survey Corps, but he was also a devil because he killed so many of them, right? Aaron was viewed by the Wall Church back in season 1 as possibly a god or a deity, but then Reiner and them view him as a devil, right? Because they're like, the last person we need to have the coordinate powers is you. Armin was technically the savior of the Scouts during the Battle of Shiganshina that we just had. But Bertolt and Reiner had called him a devil. And it's like, but the idea that people, whatever they believe is what they're going to make. So the Marleyan people have made out the people of Eldia to be demon spawn, to be the devils, because that's what they are to them. The people of Eldia view the Titans as gods. So, and that they're children of God. So it's like, and that ties back to the Wall Church. They're like children of God. They literally view Ymir as a god almost, and the 9 Titan shifters as gods. And they're like, we are children of them. So we have that tie ourselves. It's like, it's so central to this entire story, right? That there is no truth at the end of the day. We're all just people inhabiting the same location. And we tell ourselves certain beliefs to make us believe certain things to get by in this world. Right? Now, as someone that has spiritual beliefs myself, I do obviously see that there is a spiritual connection here. There's clearly a divine presence, right? Because it's coming from the sky, it's all this stuff. There's clearly something divine in this, right? Now, whether you look at it as demonic or divine, that again depends on your viewpoint, correct? But as somebody I am spiritual myself, so I do see that there is a divine connection in all this. But it's funny because the line, anyone can be a god or a devil, people are going to make others into what they want, right? To kind of foster their own agenda. That is what Kruger is stating, right? That there is no absolute truth that is overtopping someone else's truth, right? It's just what we believe. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it. It's like all these themes. We'll talk about this in the recap too. And then, but Grisha says, he's like, well, you're the one who said Dinah had royal blood in her. Was that one of your truths as well? He's like, was that even true? And I questioned that in the last episode. Was Dinah actually royal blood? And Kruger does confirm it. He's like, yes, unfortunately, Dinah having royal blood was true. We can't refute that. And then Grisha gets angry because he's like, well, then why'd you abandon her? Like, she was clearly someone, and then... But Kruger has the upper hand here, and he's right. He's like, she had royal blood. We couldn't let the enemy have her. He's like, don't you see? Like, I didn't want to kill her, but that's the only option we had. It had to be done before Zeke told Marley everything. Because, yeah, if Zeke knew that she was royalty, and he obviously did because Grisha and them, like, told Zeke, they're like, you're royal blood, you know, then... Yeah, even so. And then Kruger's like, even so, there is no even so. They're like, you don't understand. And this is like the sick, morbid part of it that Kruger's right. He's like, would she be better off giving birth to children for the enemy her entire life? He's like, would you like your wife to get, would you like your wife to get raped and have children for the sake of the Marleyans because she's royal blood? Is that what you want? But then that begs the question. Zeke is royal blood. Does the Marleyans know that? And has Zeke had kids? Is Grisha a grandpa? Does Aaron have nieces and nephews? We don't know that. That's one thing I'm questioning about. I want to know, and it's kind of a weird question, but has Zeke had children? Does Zeke have any kids? Because, here's the scary thing is, I said in the last episode, I'm like, well, Zeke and Historia are the last of the royal blood. Biologically speaking, the problem with this is that Zeke as a guy, biologically speaking, can father a lot more children than Historia can. That's the biological thing that's kind of scary. Zeke can have a lot more kids than Historia. So Zeke and Historia may not be the last of the royal blood. We don't know. I'm going to call Isayama out a little bit if he doesn't call this into question. Either Zeke doesn't know that he has royal blood in him. He doesn't know yet. Either that, Or has Zeke had kids, or has he refused? Because I'm like, you're making the assumption here. You're making Kruger make a point of, if they had gotten a hold of Dinah and knew she was royalty, they would have made her have a bunch of kids to keep the royal bloodline going and keep those kids going off to find the coordinate, right? Which is the whole irony with Zeke, is that Zeke is trying to get the coordinate, and that's what Grisha wanted him to do all along. So Zeke is just a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's kind of like Oedipus, sort of. Except without all the incest that we know of. But I'm going to kind of call Isayama out on this. I'm like, okay, Isayama, you have set up the concept here that if Dinah had stuck around and they knew she was royalty, then they would have had her keep having children to keep the royal bloodline going. You would have established that. If the Marleyan government has Zeke and they know he's royalty, why haven't they made Zeke have a bunch of kids? Why is that not a thing? Because Zeke can clearly father a lot more children than Dinah could mother. So I'm going to keep that in the back burner. It's a morbid, disgusting thought, the idea of even making Zeke have a bunch of kids. Like, that's disgusting, and I don't like it. But if we're going along the logic that Kruger brings up here, or has the Marleyan government even considered that? That's the crazy thing. The fact that Kruger's considered it is, morbid, but has the Marleyan government even thought of that? I don't know. I'm just going to put a little pin in my brain of if Zeke's had any children himself. If that's a thing. I don't know. And yeah, that thought alone disturbs Grisha. Like, it's like, yeah. And then I like that as soon as Kruger says it, he has to cover his mouth like he's going to throw up. He's like, I'm sorry I had to even mention the fact that your wife could have been taken by the enemy and used like that. Like, I'm sorry. He's like, I've done my duty. You do yours. He's like, my duty was to get to this point, and now you've got to carry on for me. But I like that even the voice actor like muffles his face, like as he talks, like he's about to throw up. I like that. And poor Grisha, because Grisha probably hadn't even thought of that. And the fact that Grisha's now probably thinking, well, damn, if I hadn't stopped Kruger, my wife, that could have happened to her. That's really sad. And the fact that, yeah, Ymir, so will stay immortal. I'm thinking back to Ilse's notebook, and I'm thinking back to episode 20. I need to go back and watch episode 10 of season 2 again. But the idea is that we'll stay immortal through her. Which is the ultimate irony, because the Titan shifters aren't immortal. They only live for 13 years. Their lifespan's incredibly limited. But, okay. All right. I need to go back and watch episode 10 again. But yeah, it's so sad. Only someone with the power of the Titans is capable of reaching the walls. Yes, so they're the only ones that would have the consciousness to reach the walls and get through it, right? Because they'd be able to have enough power if you were the Colossal Titan, if you're the Armor Titan. But even as the Attack Titan, you would have enough intelligence to know how to scale the walls and go over it. So only someone with the power of it is capable of reaching the walls and getting inside. And plus, you could dodge the other Titans. And I'm assuming that the Titan shifters in Titan shifter form, they can travel through moonlight, I'm assuming, more so than some of the other Titans can. The pure Titans can. Interesting. Yeah. And then Grisha, to be perfectly honest, I don't think I'm fit for the job. Yeah. Because Grisha's like, this is so much. And he's like, I'm a useless man. How can I be in charge of this? No way. I don't think I'm a fit for the job. And Kruger's like, nah, you're gonna do it. Kruger's not mincing any words. Kruger kind of has a little bit of Levi in him too, Kruger's like, no, you will do it. I'm about to die. You are the last option. I destroyed the boat. I can't go back and find anyone else. It's literally up to you. You don't understand. Either you're going to become the Attack Titan and go, or a baby's going to be born with my power and we got to start back from square one, and it may never happen at that point. And he's like, look at that. He was eaten alive by a Titan. Yeah. And you asked if watching that was interesting. And it wasn't interesting at all. He's like, no, his screams of agony were unbearable to hear. He's like, I didn't know any better. I guess he does have his thumbs. If I had known this was the price of freedom, I wouldn't have paid it. Damn. Grisha being like, if I had known this was the price that I had to pay, all these people dying, having to listen to them die in agony, and everything, losing my wife, losing my son. If I had known this was the price I was gonna have to pay to be free, I wouldn't have done it. And that's an interesting concept, because I'm wondering if Aaron feels the same way. I don't think Aaron does, but knowing that Grisha at this point is like, I've lost everything, and this is what I had to do to become a free person. But yeah, I feel bad for Grisha. And then Kruger's just like, stand up, like, be a man. Like, man, it's crazy. He's like, Kruger's like, yeah, I'm not gonna let you sit here and wallow in your self-pity, right? It kind of is related to Erwin, right? Telling Levi, no regrets. God, it is related to Erwin and Levi in this moment, because if you think about it, back in No Regrets, Levi, when he slaughtered that Titan that killed Farland and Isabel, you know, he was like, you knew all along what you were doing, dragging us into this battle. Like, why'd you do it, Aaron? Like, and you almost get a sense Levi doesn't come out and say it this way, but you get the sense that Levi's like, I wouldn't have come above ground. Because Levi, from the start of No Regrets, Levi wanted his freedom. He wanted to get out from underground and see the world, right? And in order to do that, the price was that he had to join the Survey Corps, and the price was that he lost Farland and Isabel, right? Because when he went after Erwin, that was the payment to go above ground, and when he went to pay it, he lost Farland and Isabel in the process. And he's like, if I had known, Levi doesn't outright say it, but his actions and everything in that conversation with Erwin and No Regrets afterwards is sort of implying, he's like, if I had known this is what it was going to take to get above ground, I wouldn't have done it. Right? And then Erwin tells him, he's like, well, you can't go back now. No regrets. He's like, stand up and be a man and face it and face the world, because nothing's going to change now. You've got to move forward. And that's kind of what Kruger is telling Grisha. He's like, yeah, it sucks. It's a cruel world. But what are you going to do about it? You're just going to sit there and sulk? And he's like, stand. He's like, fight. He's like, for the sake of restoring freedom and dignity to Eldia, he's like, stand up. And Grisha's like, I can't. And Kruger's like, huh. He's like, I brought this from your home. And Grisha knows what it is. He knows it's a picture of Dinah, and he knows it's a picture of Zeke. And it's like, those are the last people he wants to see, because he feels like he's betrayed them. He feels like he's, been absolutely worthless to them. So he doesn't want to see that photo, which we know he ends up taking it. And Kruger's like, you can't stand, you can't look, you can't fight. He's like, you don't want to do anything. Have you no balls? Yeah, God. He's like, did Marley castrate you? And he's like, it's pointless to try and make me recall my hatred. All I have left now are my sins. So Grisha's like, I had all this hatred in me, and this is what it's cost me, and if that's the cost of my freedom, then it wasn't worth it. And he's like, all I have left now are my sins to deal with. Which ties back to the whole episode of Sin back in season 3, at part 1, and Rod calling him out on it. And Kruger's like, that's more than enough. He's like, I've got sins. He's like, the main reason I picked you is because you left the walls that day. He's like, because you did sin. He's like, if you hadn't taken your sister and gone past the walls, then you would have taken over your father's clinic. Your sister probably would have grown up. She would have got married, probably had children, had a life. But you did go outside the walls. You did make that choice. And so ever since the first day, and he's connecting himself to Grisha. He's like, you made that choice to go beyond the walls. You sinned. My first day that I kicked a patriot off this wall, I was in the same boat as you. Ever since that day that you took your sister outside the walls, he says, we have to push forward until the price of our actions is paid. Be like, we're Titan shifters because we're sinners. That's the point. And it ties back to Frida saying that they're all sinners, right? Until the price of our actions is paid. So he's like, basically, if you're a Titan shifter, then you're paying for the sins there. Which, I don't know if that connects to Armin, because I don't think Armin's really sinned in that regard. I could be wrong, and you guys will probably comment and refute me, but Armin was self-sacrificing, right? Armin was self-sacrificing and he was just going to die. But he was made into the Colossal Titan. It was not Armin's choice. Armin was forced to become the Colossal Titan. And God, that just adds a whole nother weight to Mikasa, to Levi and their decisions. Because by choosing to make Armin takes this surprisingly well. Because when he's like, I've got 13 years left to live, I'm like, ha! Armin has incredible willpower to find out that he only has 13 years of his life left. And it's not because of anything that Armin did. It was because Levi and the others made a choice to turn him into the Colossal Titan, not realizing that they've limited his lifespan. Like, Armin had his fate decided for him. And he's totally fine with it. I'm like, I'd be going through a big old existential crisis if I was Armin right now. And Eren kind of is going through that same crisis right now. That's the thing. But yeah, Kruger's saying we have to push forward until the price of our actions is paid. Right? Even in death and after death. Even in death and after death. Like, here's the thing. Once we die, our power goes to someone else, whether we like it or not. We can't choose that anymore. So he's like, look at your family. This is what you've caused. Now you've got to own up to your actions. It's like, oh my God. And yeah, Grisha facing it. This is the story you began, is it not? Like, you started this story. Your actions started a chain of events that can't be overlooked now, right? And it's the idea that every action has consequence. That I love that Isayama is establishing this. That every action and every person matters. I talked about It's a Wonderful Life a little while ago, and I actually watched that last night because it's close to Christmas as I'm recording this, and I was like, I want to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and I try to every year. And I love that movie because the message of it is kind of like what's being established in this episode and what was established back in Bystander. And I think that's where I talked about it then. But the idea is that every life matters and every person matters. That everyone is special because they are born. It ties back to that. Like, you create your own narrative and you are responsible for that narrative. And it has consequences. It impacts people. Grisha making that one decision, that day, making that decision to take Faye outside the walls. He did it. And because of that, it set off a whole chain of events. It set off his sister dying, which set off him becoming part of the Restorationists, which set off him meeting Dinah, which set off him having Zeke, which set off him meeting Kruger, which set off him becoming the Attack Titan, which set off him meeting Carla, having Eren, destroying the Reese family. Everything that has happened in the present, Grisha's actions have all led to this point. And so, yeah, you started this story. And now here we are. And you can't go back on it now. It's, God, Isayama. Ugh. I think that's why I love this series so much, because I'm a big fan of, when I was in college, we did a grad course, and it was about sustainability, was what the grad course was about. But the textbook we had, one of the textbooks we had was about a non-linear narrative. And I love that, non-linear history. And it's the idea that history is not in a straight line, right? We like to make it in a straight line for convenience sake. Like, when I do my recap, I'll have like this big, but I'll probably have to not do that for the coming recap. It'll probably be like a big old web, right? Because it's not entirely linear. That's the thing. And I love the concept of non-linear history, because it's the idea that we cannot trace time and the events of history in a single line. We do it all the time because it's convenient and easy, right? But it's not possible, because there are so many factors that tie into our history. Every person we've ever met, and I love this about this concept, every person we've ever met has impacted us and impacted others, and we are all connected in this giant web, and there's nothing we can do about it except what we do ourselves. Like, we have our own willpower and our own responsibilities, and what we do is our own decisions. We have free will for a reason. And what we do, if we decide to follow a religious path, that's our choice. If we decide to not do it, it's our choice. And our actions have consequences. And there is part of this that maybe is determined by a divine power. If you're religious, you'll believe that. there is a part of this that's determined by a divine power. And that's kind of established in here. And that Kruger saying, when he talked about Mikasa and Armin at the end, and he's like, whose memories are these? That there is a divine connection there that's beyond our control. There are things beyond our control that have been predetermined, perhaps, if you believe that. But everybody is connected, and history cannot be a straight line. It is a web of many things that lead to other things, and it's all just a giant web. And you can make it like DNA strands, like a blood system, like arteries, like just connects in all different ways. But it's not a straight line, because a straight line is death, right? A straight line just means there's no life, right? And everything has its beats and its ups and downs. I love it. And that's probably why I love this series, is because it's connecting to that same concept of a nonlinear history, that there are so many factors tying, and Grisha's story is just one story, but it's a very important one because it's had some very important consequences. And it's like, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that Grisha clutches the photo with his little nubbins. It's like, and him just looking at Kruger. And Kruger's like, are you going to fight? We've got to do this now. God, I love that, of them looking at each other. There are names given to each of the 9 Titans. I love this moment. It's so damn good. I love it. That includes the Titan you will inherit. No matter which era this Titan has found itself in, it has pushed ever forward, seeking out freedom. So, and that's when he met Keith, right? When he turned back from the Titan. So yeah, so when he turned back from being a Titan, from being the attack Titan, he met Keith for the first time. Yep, that all makes sense now. Is that he was still shaken up, trying to remember things, but that's when he found seeking freedom. Oh my God, and the attack Titan, the wings of freedom. Oh my God, oh my God. We gotta flip this over, Whiteboard Coon. It's time for part 2. Yeah, the wings of freedom. And the moment that he said that no matter what era this Titan has been born in, it has sought out freedom. And he sought out the scouts who were the wings of freedom. Ah! So yeah, so the attack Titan has sought freedom. Oh my God. Yep, and the wings of freedom. It all makes sense why, for the sake of freedom, it fights. Yep. And when Grisha saw the back of Keith and he saw the wings there, that's when he got inspired, right? Oh my God. Yeah. So, and Kruger inheriting that power too, right? Oh my God. Yeah. So this whole time, and the series is called Attack on Titan, but it's really the Attack Titan. God, Isayama, you madman. Yep, I love it. Its name, the Attack Titan. And Aaron's just sitting there like thinking about it, and he just mumbles it, right? Okay, so information available for public disclosure. We're only halfway through. The 9 Titans, the true identity of intelligent Titans stemming from a power exceeding human comprehension that sleeps in subjects of Ymir. Okay. Said power is inherited along with memories through paths which transcend time and space. The coordinate where all paths intersect is the founding Titan. Oh, okay. So, okay. So we get the understanding now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. Okay. Alrighty. So I find it curious that the female Titan is paired up with this one Titan, right? And the female Titan and the one Titan are paired up together, which is interesting. They were paired up in other drawings as well. The female Titan wasn't by herself. So I'm curious to know which Titan is the female Titan paired up with. I don't think it's the Colossal Titan, because the Colossal Titan is off by themselves, right? The Colossal Titan is the biggest Titan there, and it's off by itself. But then, So yeah, so in this, interesting. Okay. So, reach down, grab that. So the founding Titan is the coordinate 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and connects through memories and pathways, like transcending time and space, with the other 8 Titan shifters. Okay. That would explain why when Aaron used the power of the coordinate, he was touching Dinah's hand. Dinah was a Titan with royal blood. So that's why when that happened, the other Titans felt it. The other Titan shifters felt it. That's why that bolt of lightning went through Bertolt, Reiner, and Ymir. They were like, oh, they sensed that Aaron used that power, the coordinates power, and was able to cause the other Titans to, attack Dinah, essentially. But here's the thing. So we're going to talk about this later in the other episode, but Aaron touched Dinah's hand, and was able to use the coordinate powers. But later on, he used it again. And we know that Zeke can control Titans verbally. But does not have the coordinate power. Zeke does not have the coordinate power because I think Christopher Peterson, you noted this in a previous episode. Zeke does not have the coordinate power because there's not that chain of lightning. If you look at this information for public disclosure card, it shows the waves coming out of the founding Titan, and it's like ribbons. It's like the Aurora Borealis, and it's tying to the other Titan shifters, right? So that is the coordinate power. That's the bolt of lightning that goes through, right? And that's what Aaron used when Aaron controlled the Titans. So this is very curious. This is where I'm a little curious about, okay? Aaron used the coordinate power when he touched Dinah's hand. That makes total sense. He was in contact with an actual royal blood member. By touching it, it activated that power. That makes sense. Okay. But then he used it again. He used it again to get the Titans to go after Bertolt and Reiner, right? The only thing I can think of, and this is where it gets kind of weird, is that he was carrying Mikasa when that happened. When he carried that again, when he used that power the second time, he was carrying Mikasa. Mikasa has had the lightning go through her when she, back in episode 6, was going after to kill that man. There was the lightning bolts, everything connected. And then the Ackermans and the Eastern Clan. Okay. So when Mikasa was killing that one family, that one group of, not family, that robbers that were trying to get her and her mom, she had the lightning go through her head, and it was that green spark of energy and everything, right? So Aaron was carrying her at the time when he used his coordinate powers the second time. So the theory could be, and I talked about this way back earlier, and I had kind of convinced myself that it wasn't true, but now I'm rethinking it. If we're talking about the 3 siblings of the king, the 3 daughters of the founding Titan, Sino, Rose, and Maria, it could be that the Ackermans and the Eastern Clan, the nobles that weren't affected by the powers of the royal family, because they're descended from the royal family, it doesn't work on them, the Ackermans and the Eastern Clan could have royal blood, right? Possibly. They could have royal blood in them. And so when Aaron was carrying Mikasa, he was technically connected to somebody with royal blood, and he could use the coordinate powers again. Maybe. And maybe that's why the Ackermans have that power or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. But it would make sense if Aaron has to touch someone that's related to the royal family to use the coordinate powers. That's how we have that workaround. Then maybe the Ackermans and Eastern clan are related by royal blood. Maybe that's it. We'll go back to this here in a little bit. But, okay. They're all connected. All right. And that's when we have this reprieve where Hanji and Levi and Armin are there. And he's like, sorry, I was zoned out remembering my father's memories. Sorry, I've been flooded with those lately. And Hanji's like, the attack titan. Like, didn't you just do that? And Aaron's like, I don't remember. And Hanji's like, you saw this, didn't you see it? And Armin's like, yeah, but what was all this about? And Aaron just looks dazed. Like, Aaron right now is trying to remember. I don't blame Aaron for being dazed. Like, he has been flooded. Celine Dion is playing in the background. It's all coming back to him now. And he's trying to remember all these memories to find out more information. I don't blame Aaron for being like, what's happening? What was all that about? And he's like, it's nothing. And Hanji's like, it's the name of your titan, isn't it? What were you doing talking to yourself? Hanji's like, I want to figure out things. Give me more info. And Levi's like, shut up. He's like, he's only 15 years old. And I'm wondering if Armin's told Levi that they only have 13 years to live. If Levi knows that now. And Levi's trying to be kind by saying everybody goes through a phase. So it's fine. Like, leave him alone. He's got a lot to think about. He's like, Aaron, and then Hanji's like, what phase are we talking about? Puberty? He's already gone through puberty. And poor Aaron, like, And Levi says, I'll explain it to you later. It's not right with him here. So, I don't know if Levi's talking about puberty necessarily, or if he's talking about the fact that Aaron... He's like, I don't want to talk to you about Aaron dying in 7 to 8 years because it's not proper. But this face Aaron makes, this weird face, like it's too much. There's too many memories. I don't like it. No. It's like, ugh. And Hanji's like, what do you mean by that? And then Aaron's like, why are you even here? Like, did you guys come to torture me? And Levi's like, get out. We're going. And yeah, so Aaron's like, we were supposed to be disciplined for 10 more days. And Levi's like, Hanji just now is punishment enough. Like, let's go. We have a talk with Premier Zachary, so don't worry about it. Yeah, I like that Zachary's like, get him out of there. I don't care. And Hanji's trying to say, well, we can't imprison the people that saved humanity. That would send a bad message, you know. And plus, you were defying us morons who let the Beast and Armored Titan get away. I don't like that Hanji demeans themselves in that moment. You can tell Hanji still feels guilty about letting the Beast and Armored Titan get away. And it's like, don't say that. Don't be like that. Come on, Hanji. Like, I hate that they're like that in that moment. And Aaron's just kind of like, I'm not even worried about that. And yeah, he's like, that's not... Stop. But yeah, so that phase, there's a part of me that thinks that Levi is going to tell Hanji about the whole dying in 13 years thing later. And just didn't want to bring it up in front of Aaron because, I mean, that's traumatizing. And Armin's there too. Or if it is literally puberty and he's like, let's have this talk later. But poor Mikasa. Mikasa just looks haggard. Like she's just depressed. And then Aaron's like, did you lose some weight? Oh my gosh. We had plenty to eat though. I'll be honest, I've never been a huge Aaron and Mikasa shipper because I always, up until this season, thought that it was a little bit one-sided on Mikasa's part. I knew that Aaron always cared about her, but I never thought it was like in the capacity that I could ship them together. And then episode 12 of season 2 happened, and I was like, okay, I can kind of see where maybe it's coming from. But with this season, especially this episode here, when Aaron's like, well, we've had plenty to eat, why did you lose weight? And it's like, because Mikasa is like horrified at the idea that the person she loves is going to die in 7 to 8 years. So of course she feels awful. And she's like, oh, well. And the way she looks at him, and she's like, you seem good. Like she's just detracting the conversation away from the topic. And Aaron looks genuinely concerned. Like, he's like, I guess. And I like that Armin is the least affected by all this. I'm like, Armin, how are you not... Like, Aaron is freaking out, having all these memories. Mikasa's freaking out, knowing that the people that she loves are going to die in like less than 2 decades, and it's set in stone. And Armin's like, totes okay. Looking past it. I guess that shows like the dexterity that Armin has, which is good to know, but like, and then Levi says to an audience, Her Majesty has come to Trost. And then we have the letter that Historia receives. And she's even got the little bolo now. She's got a little red bolo. I love Historia with her hair up, looking all badass. She's got her military gear on with that beautiful coat over it. Like, Historia looks gorgeous, but she also looks like 10 years older since she's become queen. But yeah, she has the bolo now. She's in power. But this letter, God, to my dear Historia. I feel like, knowing the Historian Ymir's an OTP, this is like the most beautiful and cruel thing in the world, because it's basically like Ymir and Historia is not going to happen. As I'm writing this, Reiner stands next to me. And because it's Ymir, she still gets away with this. It's pretty obvious that he's sneaking peeks at this love letter. Forever an OTP. We can't have nice things. So they're in, like, clearly a cell at this love letter. He can be such a creep. No wonder he's single. Even until her final writings, Ymir, still an S-tier boss. Even to the end. Yep. However, he did promise me he'll deliver this letter to you. Because this was, he says it's payback for saving them that one time. Yep. I'm sorry about then. I never imagined I would end up choosing them over you. It's so sad. It won't be long until I die. So that was the other thing. We had on the other side, we didn't know how long Ymir had the power of the Titan Shifter. I'm assuming it was around the same time as Reiner and Bertolt and them, so she should have lived longer, but they were going to give someone else her power. Damn. Won't be long until I die, but I have no regrets. That's what I'd like to say, but there is one thing. That I wasn't able to marry you. Isayama, why? Why do you give us this? And Reiner looking at her. Reiner looking at that letter and watching her write that. Knowing that Ymir loved Historia and wanted to marry her and be with her. And you can just... I do like how soft Reiner looks in that moment. Like he's just looking down at her writing the letter, but he's unhappy about it. Like I do genuinely like that he has that face towards her with that. That line that I wasn't able to marry you is so damn sad. Sincerely, Ymir. Like that's her only regret. And that's how she ends the letter. And so here's the thing. Historia touches the writing. She touches the ink where Historia, where clearly Ymir's hand had been. And that's when the spark happens, the connection, because she's royal blood. She's from the founder of Ymir. So she has the connection, the ability, the capability to become the coordinate. So I wanted to go back through and watch this moment because, okay. So then Historia sees it. She sees the Aurora Borealis. She sees it. She sees Ymir as a child outside in the slums. She sees the man taking Ymir. And I don't know if that man is significant. He doesn't look like anybody we've seen before. And then we see her getting chosen. The people. Her getting beaten. Kicked off the wall. Kicked off the wall in the desert. Her doing that. Yep. And then we have that. And then her running as a Titan. Reiner getting pushed aside, eating Marcel. And I'm like trying not to miss anything. Seeing the Aurora Borealis. All the paths cross at a single coordinate. And we tie back to that. In other words, that's the founding Titan. And so those words come into play. And I'm curious if Historia actually hears it. She sees Ymir in that moment. And then we have a man standing in front of her. So here's the thing. There's this other guy. This guy right in front of her. Looking up at her. And she's in the same position that Frida was, right? Except this is clearly not the underground chapel. This is clearly on Marley's side, which it makes sense. It makes sense because the founding Titan would have made the underground chapel look like what it looked like in the past when it was on Marley. So there we go. But yeah, there's the stairs and everything, and there's someone there, someone with like brownish or lighter colored hair. It's another man. Damn. And there's Ymir, like she's about to be eaten. And then Astoria here sees that. What was that? Oh. And she's looking at the paper like, is there some kind of special paper? No, it was her connecting to the Titan shifters. And is that all there was? Yes. Yeah. It was just that letter. Telling her that she loved her, you know, just that. So I'm curious. I'm going to wonder if Astoria is going to put 2 and 2 together along with Aaron. If Astoria is going to talk to Aaron at some point and be like, hey, this weird thing happened when I touched this paper. I'm wondering if it would happen with you. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, and so Hanji's like, there's nothing else. And then Jean's arm's still injured. But Jean's like, was there any secret message that only you would know? Like a code. And Historia's like, I don't know. I doubt she would do something like that because it's Ymir. Yeah. And she says, Ymir's such a dummy. Such a dummy. I hate that because that's establishing that her and Ymir won't be together. All of my tears. All of my tears. But I'm wondering if Historia and Aaron are ever going to get together to talk about this. You'd play it off the second you're embarrassed. I just never know with you. And she cried! Oh no! I didn't notice that in the reaction that she was crying. Yeah. God, my OTP is sinking like that ship at the beginning of this episode. Damn it. So somebody else has gained the power of Marcel's Titan. A dude. Go figure. I don't want to write Ymir in with the dead, but I'm going to because I'm pretty sure that that means Ymir is dead. So episode 21. Episode 21, got to write down Kruger. And I'm going to write down Ymir. That sucks. I loved Ymir's character, and if she died off screen, maybe they'll flash back to it in a later episode. Maybe. Maybe. And so I said, come in. And yeah, Historia wiping away her tears. And then there's those 3. And yeah, I like that Armin them, Your Majesty. And she's like, stop, it's not an official position yet. No. And then I like that Aaron does that little like, I don't know, y'all. Ymir's dead. If Ymir's dead, Ymir and Historia are my OTP. I mean, other than Kenny and Uri. They're my OTP in this. Do I still ship Historia and Aaron? Kind of. They're on the besties train for sure. But well, we need to talk about that, though, when we get closer. So much has happened, hasn't it? Yeah, that's an understatement of the century. But all I did was stare at the south sky from within the walls. Kind of like Aaron. Until Armin enlightened him with the book and everything, Aaron was doing the same thing. It's an important duty of yours to stay alive. And she's talking about, so Historia's talking about just staring at the southern sky through the walls. She's talking about watching them on their journey. She's like, I didn't do anything while you guys were off battling in Shiganshina, and I should have. It's just funny she says that. It was kind of connecting to Aaron from the start. But Armin's like, it's an important duty of yours to stay alive. Yeah, because unless Zeke has a bunch of kids roaming around somewhere, her and Zeke are the last ones with royal blood. So there you go. And then Mika says like, yeah, that's right. And the story's like, I'm glad you guys are all acting normal. And they all look at Aaron like, well, kind of. And Aaron's like, it just hasn't sunk in yet. Yeah, no joke. And so they're gathering up all these papers. I like Jean's with Hanji in this. I like the idea that Jean working with Hanji, because I think Jean has the potential to be like a section commander when he gets a little bit older, so I like that. And then I like that Sasha's sitting in bed eating apples like she's regaining her strength. It's like, yes, awesome. So we have the gathering of everybody, and Flock is here. It's funny, Flock and Jean and Connie are in the back row. Sasha is not, so we have the 8 of the 9 present. Sasha's clearly injured, so she's not there. But we have Flock and Jean and Connie in the back. Armin, Mikasa, and Eren in the middle, and then Hanji and Levi at the top, right? Okay. And then we have all the other members around in that moment. Okay. Like Pixis and everybody is there in front of Historia Zachary, the early life of Grisha Jaeger, and the extent of our knowledge of Titans and their history. Yeah, the 3 books. The only people who know about the existence of these books are inside this room, so it's just the high brass, right? Mm-hmm. And those were gained by the efforts of 9 scouts and the 199 that are not here today. Yep. So there's a woman there with Zachary. I don't know who the woman is. This was Historia. I'm assuming she's one of the higher up officers. Interesting. We don't know her yet. In the Queen's present, we need to assess our situation and establish an agreement in terms of our course of action. So yeah, clearly Niall's not happy about it. But Scout Regiment Commander Hanji Zoe. Yeah, the Scouts have lost a great deal, including Erwin Smith. But in exchange for the many heroes that we lost, we have retaken Wall Maria and stolen the Colossal Titan's powers. And I like that Armin is positioned behind her. Humanity that lives within the walls remains in a precarious situation. Yeah, a bit. Just a wee bit. And then we have, it would be a relief were Titans the only monsters we had for enemies. But that's not the case. Not at all. No. And Eren's like grimly aware of this. The true identity of the enemies that we've been fighting. Yeah, and God, we go back to season 2, episode 10. Who's the enemy? And Eren looks so much younger there. God, Eren looks like so much younger than he does now. Yeah. Our humans. A civilization. Yep. So I want to go back and touch that line because we have two trains of thoughts there. The true identity of the enemies that we've been fighting are humans, a civilization. And then Ymir's like, enemy? Who knows, right? It's so huge. Yeah. The world. So yeah, this whole thing. It is the Eldians in the wall. Eldians in the wall versus the world. And there's Eldians outside of the wall, but they're not free. They're enslaved by the rest of the world. And I'm going to put Marley in parentheses here because technically the main threat of the world is Marley. Right? Okay. My God. According to these, we're a special race called the subjects of Ymir who can turn into Titans. It's so crazy that now everybody inside the walls, I've been calling them the wall people. I'm like, I don't know the name for them. They're all Eldians. They're all Eldians. And they're the subjects of Ymir who can turn into Titans. So everybody in the room supposedly has that ability. And there's the belief that we may rule the world again. And that's why the world wishes to eradicate us subjects of Ymir for good. And then we go back to Eren, and he's thinking about his dad with Kruger. If the founding Titan falls into Marley's hands, the Eldians are done for. Yeah, because the coordinate controls all of them. So if they get the coordinate, then it's all over. Yep. So the king in the walls wouldn't allow that to happen. Yeah, the king in the walls won't fight. That's the thing. And so basically, if once again Eldia is driven to sin, we will perish as it's meant to be. So the founding Titan, the king at the time, was like, nope, not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to fight anymore because of all that we've done. And so if Eldia keeps sinning, then we just deserve to die. So I'm not going to do that, right? Interesting. We'll perish as it's meant to be. And I've made a vow renouncing war with the founding Titan. He said that the royal family on the continent and then closed the walls. Yep. So, okay. So the founding Titan, basically, the founding Titan at the time, Fritz, the one that was the coordinate, didn't want to fight anymore, was like, nope, tired of it, and then like hid in the walls. So basically the founding Titan at the time, 107 years ago, was like, we deserve to die. We have sinned and we don't deserve to exist. So very nihilistic, and was like, nope, Gonna hide her in the walls and not do anything. And so Grisha's like, well, didn't he warn the Titans of the walls would flatten the earth if they were provoked? And Kruger's like, yeah, that was meant to deter an attack on them. It allowed for a brief time of peace. Yeah. The king of the walls stole his people's memories and made them believe humanity perished beyond the walls to keep them safe from everything. He surrounded himself with the ignorant and babbled about paradise. So Kruger was not into Uri's beliefs, for sure. Because, yeah, babbled about paradise. So, and we get the shot of Kenny and Uri. So Kruger is saying that the founding Titan just wanted to hide under the walls, pretend like nothing was wrong, and keep things peaceful like a paradise, and just have everybody ignorant and just go along with it. And that sounds well and good, but outside the walls, people are dying, and it's anything but paradise. And so we can't just sit around and do nothing. Like, you can't hide in your walls forever and let the rest of the world burn. That's not how it works, is what Kruger is suggesting. That, no, something needs to be done. And that's kind of what Uri was a slave to. Uri and the founding Titan was a slave to this notion of paradise. But I feel like there is something still with the idea of the dialogue. That there is something still there. I feel like Uri was tapping into something in that moment. That the whole thing about the miracle, that there is something to that. I still think there's something to that. That if you're going to resolve it, because like it's being suggested with all this, the Titan powers, as long as the Titans exist, these powers will keep going on and on forever. And it's just going to be an endless cycle of people either dominating others or controlling others or starting wars or keeping up with wars or killing people. Like, it's never going to end unless the Titans who have the power do something to create a dialogue. And I feel like Uri was trying to say that. And I feel like that's the message Isayama is saying, is that in real life, just like in this show, conflict will never end unless there is a dialogue and understanding. And that's the only way to really stop a conflict like this from becoming violent and causing bloodshed. But Kruger does not know about Uri and the miracle. Kruger just knows about the founding Titan hiding and not taking action and letting the rest of the world burn. That's all Kruger knows. So, it's interesting. A king who can't protect people is no king. God, again, Yona of the Dawn. Go watch it. A lot of these concepts are being addressed in Yona of the Dawn. And I'm like, wow. Huh. Fun times. A king who cannot protect is no king. Yep. And that's kind of what was getting to the end with Rod Reese and them, and the whole issue of the series is that they couldn't protect them anymore from the Titans outside the walls. The Titans were coming in, Bertolt and Reiner and all them, they were coming in outside the walls. And I feel like this line that's told to Grisha resonates when he goes to speak with Frida and Rod Reese and them in the flashback. I feel like Grisha would tie back to this line. He's probably yelling at them. It's saying a king who can't protect his people is no king. He's like, you have the chance to do something. Bertolt and Reiner, the Colossal and Armor Titans, are attacking the walls. They're going to kill all of our people. You have to fight them. You have to do something. You can't just sit back and take the cowardly approach and do nothing and expect it all to work out. He's like, you have to do something. And the fact that Rod Reese and Frida and them couldn't protect them anymore, Grisha's like, well, then you are no king, right? So it's going to be curious to see what Historia does on that front. And then we tie back to Eren. God! And that transition from Grisha to Eren. You must find that cowardly king and strip him of the founding Titan. Yeah. And that line, I say that Grisha and Eren don't look similar, but in that moment, because Eren does look a lot like Carla, but in that moment of them both with the resigned face, there's differences in their features, but they look so similar. Yeah, that is our mission. Yeah. And Hanji's like, Mr. Yeager achieved that mission and trusted the founding Titan to his son Eren. In order to wield the founding Titan's true full power, it must be possessed by someone with royal blood. However, even if that person possesses the founding Titan, they're enslaved by the king's ideals. And I love that we see Frida, like she's trying to go against it, like up against the wall, but she can't. And it'll only lead them down the path of humanity's downfall. That is the vow renouncing war. However, Eren was able to control pure Titans in the past to escape a dire situation. And this is where we get into the whole thing with Dinah. Yeah, so Hanji's reasoning that it could be possible that even without royal blood, that you can wield that power. And Eren's thinking back to that moment, right? And Eren's like, oh yeah, that's right. Just for a split second, it felt like everything connected. That's when he touched Dinah. Yeah, and that's when he realizes why. But it was through Dinah, who was royal blood. Yup. That realization. Yep, it was through Dinah. Because she was, Dinah Fritz. And Eren's like, it can't be. He's just like, oh shit, I just realized this one thing. And Hanji's like, hey, whoa, you zoned out. You scared me. What's up? And so we find out that Eren has not told Mikasa and Armin about Dinah. And I like that Zachary says, please continue, our Titan. Like, interesting title. And then he hasn't told Mikasa and them. I like that he looks over to Mikasa and is like, oh, it's nothing. And they're like, what? Sorry for interrupting the meeting. I love that Eren's like, never mind me. Don't worry about it. Just ignore me. It's fine. And Hanji's like, So Eren's like, shit, I can't talk about this right now. Because, Eren doesn't want to bring it up in front of Historia. Showing he's learned from Kruger and Grisha from the memories. He's learning, let the memories guide you. He's learned from them. Because in that moment, Hanji's like, oh, you can't talk about it right now. Okay, Hanji realizes that whatever Eren's outburst was, is connected to what he's remembering. So Hanji's like, oh, I see, right. Yeah, Hanji's like, I'm going to find this out from you later. But for now, I'm not going to mention anything. Sorry, it seems that he's having a phase of sorts. One where he randomly acts up and randomly yells things. Sorry. And then I love that Zachary's so accepting. He's like, okay, that's unfortunate. Carry on. Like, Zachary's so chill. He's just like, oh, okay, I don't know anything about the Titans. Seems legit. He just yells out random things. He's probably shell-shocked from the battle. It's totally reasonable. Carry on. We're very lucky that Zachary is not a paranoid person. That Zachary is super chill in this and doesn't care. But yeah, and Hanji covers it well. But you know Hanji's going to go back and ask him about it. And yeah, he's that age, I guess. They're all blaming this on puberty. I'm like, okay, cool. Glad everybody has this mindset. And Armin's like, what's up? And then Eren's like, I haven't told these two about Dinah yet. The Titan that killed my mom and Hannes was someone that my dad was married to before. Yep. And what's more, if I talk about it, I like that Eren's reasoning this out. If I talk about it, then if someone with royal blood is made into a Titan that I touch, it might be possible for me to use the founding Titan powers. So Eren is thinking that they have to become a Titan for him to use the powers. But I don't think that that's it. I think that they just have to be of royal blood for it to work. Right? I don't think they have to be made into a Titan for it to happen. I think he could that's why I think the whole thing with Mikasa, I think as long as he's touching someone with royal blood, that there's that touch there, that it'll work. I don't think it has to be that they have to be a Titan. But he's afraid. But Eren is saying that it's just a possibility, right? But if they knew of that possibility, what would the military do to Historia? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What would they do indeed? If the military, Eren is thinking the same line as Kruger, right? He's like, if we reveal this and Historia is a factor in all of it, would they use Historia? And they may do that, right? Or Historia may go through with it, right? So Eren's like, I like that Eren in this moment is trying to protect Historia and keep her safe until he knows more about it. Until he knows more about this power. He doesn't want Historia to get involved because he doesn't want her getting hurt. And in this moment, Eren is looking at Historia and Armin is looking over to Eren. There's so much. Now that Armin is the Colossal Titan, I feel like there's so much dynamic here, the engagement between them. Oh, it's so good. It's so damn good. But yeah, and Aaron's like, and Armin's just thinking like, okay. And then we tie back to the twilight. The twilight of Kruger. Yep. And Kruger, as he's getting the syringe ready, he's like, have a family. And Grisha's like, huh? He's like, after you enter the walls, build a family. And Grisha is like, what are you talking about? I have Dinah. I can't just forget about her. Won't I forget the things you tell me just before I become a Titan anyway? And he's like, that's not always the case. And someone may see it later. Your wife, your child, your neighbors, if need be. They may see the truth. They may see those same memories, right? What he's suggesting is you may eventually have to make someone into yourself, into the attack Titan. Maybe your wife, maybe your child, it may be your neighbors if it has to be, somebody that you trust, right? So he's like, build a family. And not just like a literal family. Like he is suggesting, he's like, have a wife and kids so that you have someone to pass this power on to if need be. Because you'll need to. Because he's like, once you become the founding Titan, once you become the attack Titan, you only have 13 years to live. So you need to build a family and prepare for that, because you're only going to live 13 years after this happens. So if you're 25 now, you're only going to live to 38. You're going to die young. So you need to build a relationship, not only have a wife and kids, but build a relationship with the people you're around. Make that your family too, so that if you have to, if the time comes, then you have someone to pass this power on to that you trust, that you can trust that power to. Yeah. It's like, love someone inside the walls. If you can't do that, it'll only repeat the same history, the same mistakes over and over. So, yeah, I want to do it in red because it's love. So, yeah, love or history will repeat. Which, ties to the memory. Ties to the miracle. Not the memory, but ties to the miracle. He's like, you need to love someone inside the walls, or the same history mistakes will repeat over and over again, because now you know enough to make a difference, to change history. So that, and the idea of loving and showing compassion and love to someone is kind of the same thing as the miracle. He's like, you're going to have the upper hand in this situation. So do something with it. Love someone. And you can possibly change it to where history doesn't repeat itself. And that kind of ties to the miracle, the idea of what Uri did with Kenny, right? And Grisha looks so horrified, but it's like, yeah, you can't just be a curmudgeon and live inside the walls and not love anyone. It's like, that's not going to do anything, right? Ugh. He's like, to save Mikasa, Armin, and everyone else, you have to see it through. And I was like, ooh, I kind of freaked out at this moment because I was like, wait, what? No? And he's like, Mikasa and Armin, who's that? And I love that for a moment, Kruger stops and he's like, and he kind of like doesn't realize what it was either. He was like, who knows? I'm not sure. Whose memories are those? And the thing of it is he actually, this is the crazy part, is Kruger actually remembering Armin and Mikasa in this moment and knowing about people that don't even exist yet? Is Kruger actually remembering and knowing people that don't even exist yet? Or because Eren was remembering the memories of Grisha, is Eren's memories merging with Grisha's memories, and Eren is remembering what Grisha told him about Mikasa and Armin? And oh my god, like it's there's so many ties to it, because like if it's Grisha's memories that he's remembering, if Eren is merging his own memories with Grisha's, then maybe Kruger didn't even know who Mikasa and Armin were. There's like three ways to look at it, right? There's three ways. There's two ways to look at it. Either Eren's memories are melding right now with Grisha's memories and Kruger's memories. And so that's why Kruger said Mikasa and Armin's names, because he was just remembering his memories are merging with Eren's. Or Kruger did actually say to Grisha at that time, Armin and Mikasa, and even Kruger didn't know where those memories came from, but they were there. And then when you think about that concept, when Grisha runs into Mikasa later on, like in episode 6, he knows that she's connected somehow, so maybe that's why he took her in. Maybe that's why he took her in. He took Mikasa in because Kruger had mentioned the name, and he's like, there's probably some connection to this. I probably should have her come stay with us now that she's not dead and my son saved her. That might be important later on. We don't know. It's just, But that shot of the sun setting and him holding the syringe and being like, whose memories are those? What? And then it just stops. There was no to be continued either. Wow, there was no to be continued. It just stops. And there's the end credits. Okay, like I said, Attack on Titan is answering questions, but giving us even more questions to take its place, right? It's kind of insane. But yeah, we have all the Titans here going forward and attacking the people. And so then, yeah, there seemed like there was a couple images that weren't in the last episode. Yeah, like the Titans running through, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, all the Titans running through, and Titans on Titan horses. Are there Titan horses? What? Crazy talk. And then, yeah, building the walls, doing all that. And all the Titans are linked arms that built the walls around them. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then, yeah, Ymir. Okay. This episode, oh my God, my brain is fried. Brain fried indeed. I've completely got to restructure the recap. There's just no way around it. There's no way around it. The recap has to be completely restructured. Yeah, it's gonna have to be completely restructured. I've still got to think about that. I'm probably gonna wait a day and let this process before. I mean, Christmas is coming up, so I may wait until after Christmas to record episode 22. Just to wait and let my brain process and also think about how I'm redoing the recap. But I'm going to be watching episode 22, and then I'm going to be watching the Lost Girls OVAs, and then doing the recap after the Lost Girls OVAs. And then obviously starting season 4. Right? So, insanity. I mean, obviously, no spoilers, please. I've made it this far. I'm doing good. I cannot believe I've made it this far, but here we are. So yeah, I still have so many questions. I'm going to have to think about those, right? I'm going to have to think about those. I'll probably have to rewatch season 3 part 2, at least episodes 16 through 22 over again before starting the recap, because lots of things revealed. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what y'all thought of these episodes, and Kruger. What do y'all think of Kruger? I love Kruger. He's great. I'm sad that he's dead, but you know what? It makes sense. It's all part of the grand scheme of things, right? So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but thank you all so much for watching. I've talked for over 2 hours. I didn't talk to 3 hours, didn't make it to 3 again, so that's good. But I talked for over 2 hours, awesome. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. By the time this comes out, it'll be 2022. It'll be the new year, so Happy New Year, right? Happy New Year, y'all. We made it 2022 and we finally found some answers. After 6 months of watching Attack on Titan, we're finally here. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back very soon with the season finale of season 3 of Attack on Titan.